attention in the Union. And the way the Green deals with the use of water only confirms this. So carbon neutrality is not everything. While we are able to adopt the higher amounts of greenhouse gases and rising temperatures, we will not survive a day without a water. It is a resource that must be constantly taken care of so that we all have it available on a daily basis and in required quality. For example, in my country, the Czech Republic, we have a long-term stable and sufficient amount of precipitation, but the groundwater levels are declining because we are not able to retain the water in the landscape. And not to mention the chronic problems of overuse of pesticides, phosphorus, and nitrogenous substances in industrial agriculture, which in turn has a negative impact on water and soil quality. In order to achieve that water is no longer Cinderella in the EU, at least four things should be done in my eyes. Firstly, we should enshrine water protection in our law system, ideally in the constitution of the individual member states. Our coalition in Prague already put this on the agenda in my home country, and we have an opportunity to take part in the government after the October elections, and we will definitely strive to make that happen as soon as possible. I know that some time ago, a European citizens initiative called Right to Water appeared. However, our intentions are a bit different. We are, as conservative, need more than another difficult to enforce human rights. Secondly, we must do more than ever to effectively retain water in the landscape. It is not only about preventing drought, but also about increasingly frequent fluctuations of water, which threaten us, for revise land reclamation, and above all, restore wetlands, ponds, small reservoirs, and floodplains. Especially in cities, we must embark on the path of active rainwater management. Many of these tasks will logically fall on our farmers. We must be able to support them in this, not only at European level, but above all, national, regional, and the local level. Can you hear me? Because I do have some, yeah. Thirdly, we must better protect water from pollution, whether from industry, landfills, or agriculture. We already have a number of legislative and financial instruments for this. Now we just need to start using them effectively and above all, consistently. And last but not least, fourthly, we need to digitalize water surveillance and protection, whether it is continuous digital monitoring of the quality of streams in industrial, agriculture, or other risk areas, or the effective interconnection of water system, including wastewater treatment plants. More concretely, there are a number of ways at European level to ensure that water mainstreaming is not just an empty phrase. In the near future, we as the MEPs will start working on at least the following files. There is the revised directive of security of network and information system. There is the Zero Pollution Action Plan. There is Fit for 55 package. There is Energy Efficiency Directive, as was mentioned already by Pernilla. There is new EU soil strategy. There is the Sewage Sludge Directive. There is Energy Performance of Building Directive. There is Industrial Emission Directive, and there is also Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. One of the goals of this file is the circularity, which I talked about at the beginning, let's try to incorporate it wherever appropriate. Unfortunately, we have not been consistent in this so far. See, for example, regulation on minimum requirements for water reuse, which only deals with agriculture irrigation. So the other possible options on how to reuse water are in place. And I'm receiving the daily phone calls pointing out to that. So I firmly hope, to sum up, that together we will cooperate on the mentions file, that we would bring the business and the policymakers together and move water mainstreaming in the EU to a new higher level. The water certainly deserves it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sascha. I am very lucky to have you on board as a very experienced colleague. The water reuse revision we actually made together, and you were on that journey from the beginning. I was just a newcomer in this new term here in the European Parliament, and you are so true. It's only pointed to the agricultural reuse of water, and we must look at how we can also introduce reuse of industry related water. The potential is huge, and the logic is, I mean, it doesn't make any sense not to work that up. So I agree very much. You also mentioned a lot of what is on the agenda, and I know that Dirk has an overview that we can share with the participants. Dirk, isn't it a good time now to take that up here so everybody can have the same overview as Sascha and I have?
Yes, I think Loïc is going to put it up now. Voila.
Perfect. Dirk, will you take us through?
Absolutely. Or, so I think,
yeah.
A few things that we're currently looking at, I think, which are important files for the water sector is the NIS2 directive on resilience of critical entities and the Zero Pollution Action Plan. For sure, I think the second one will be coming back to a little bit later. Then we have the Fit for 55 package and the Energy Efficiency Directive and the new SOL directive coming up. And then later on in the year, we'll be looking at the revision of the sewage, or the proposal for the revision of the Sewage Sludge Directive. And then later on, the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. Of course, the revision of the Industrial Emissions Directive and the EU Nature Restoration Targets. And at the beginning of next year, sorry, confusing, but then we have the revision of the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive and the United Nations World Water Development Report. And very importantly, I think also the 9th World Water Forum in Dakar in March in 2020. And you want to add something to that, perhaps specifically with the Fit for 55 package, because I'm not sure that all people from the water sector fully understand what that is all about.
No, and that makes sense because what is in such a big package? The package is full of concrete initiatives that the Commission will launch in a couple of weeks. I guess the deadline for announcements of the content is set to be the July 14th. And it is how to revise all relevant legislative packages and directives in order to fit for the least 55 decarbonization's target of the EU climate law that was agreed now about a month and a half, 2 months ago, approximately. So in that, we very much look forward to see how much water is there, not water down, but actually taking water on board as a resource on how to reach the climate goals. And just to make a very simple example, if we boost the energy efficiency of the water sector very conservatively, only the known infrastructure in the water sector in EU, if we boost energy efficiency, it is actually possible to cut down the CO2 emissions by 20 million tons. And also by focusing on the energy efficiency, like it also is in the renovation wave of how to decarbonize the heating and cooling of our existing buildings, then it is a huge source to cut down on energy consumption that we then can use on other purposes that are also more and more energy depending, but also that we can push from fossil to renewable and clean energy sources. That's a very important part of it. And you cannot do that without energy efficiency first as a principle, and that goes also to water. But I would like to actually step one step back to today's packages, because also Sasha mentioned the Zero Pollution Action Plan, and not to be dramatic, but when we look at the content to the proposal for the Zero Pollution Action Plan, it is very sad to see how little there is on water in the Zero Pollution Action Plan. And it tells us that what we can do together in this MEP Water Group really can create a lot of value, and also value that we must not lose. So right now in my office, and I guess also at Sasha's, we are working on the Zero Pollution Action Plan to challenge it and also to ask for the Commission to be more precise, to be more concrete, but also to open their eyes to the many sources of innovation and in our environmental improvement through more water awareness to the Pollution Action Plan. I don't know, Sasha, if you have a remark, especially on that one.
Yeah, I need to unmute myself. So look, just listening to you, there could be a couple of examples how even, in your argument that the better water treatment could contribute to tackling the climate change. For example, the forests, substantial part of Central Europe has a huge problem with dying forest in the last 4 years. And that's the product of the dominating draw. In other words, by our low ability to contain the water in the countryside, in the landscape. And here, if we would be able to protect the forests more effectively than we were in the last couple of years due to the better water management, then, just measuring the carbon CO2 balance would be much better, because now, for example, my country, we have about the 30% of the area was always covered by the forest, but it was substantially downgraded due to this catastrophe. So it's just one example how the better water management could contribute even to the better CO2 balance in the end. And one can enumerate many other examples.
Very good. We have already here, I think, a very concrete question from our audience, which I'd like to pick up now. And I would also like to take this opportunity to encourage everybody who has tuned in to put their questions they want to put to our MEPs in the chat, so I can share them, these questions with them. The first question that I have here comes from Dominique Gattel, who says, who refers to the opportunity to push, I would say, water reuse, particularly in view of the two initiatives which are coming up, the revision of the Industrial Emissions Directive and revision of the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. And he highlights that this is a unique opportunity that probably doesn't come twice. So how do you see that? How can we use that opportunity to really, I would say, promote, I would say, in the water sector, not only probably of the reuse of the resource itself, but also of the, I would say, of the resources contained in wastewater.
Exactly. Well, there are several things we can do. Now we have the timetable, and we know that we in MEP Water Group can organize events where we speak up all the potentials and possibilities to raise awareness politically, but also among citizens and member states. And also that Sasha and colleagues and me, that one of us or a couple of us actually goes to be either the rapporteur or the shadow rapporteur of these files, because that is how we can make what we talk here, the energy we put into the MEP Water Group, that we can make that into the political workshops and handicrafts, so that also the very important bits and pieces of these documents, they have the right wording, the right content to that. So we can start already now. The Industrial Emissions Directive is late this year, so we only have actually from now and to the late summer and the beginning of the fall to talk and to harvest ideas, to nurture ideas, to examine and access also the political possibilities, so that Sasha and me, together with maybe also a couple of others from this group here who engage formally in the work, that we know where we have each other, so that we don't have the political debates and fights, and that we wait until the end. And that's also why I hope we also in this little lunch meeting here maybe can address the Energy Efficiency Directive, because the Commission, we know, will propose a revised target for 37.5. The existing target is 32%. So question is, how high can we go? Is it 38? Is it 40? Is it at least 40? Is it 45? What is realistic, and also what is also something that can create a sustainable and broad majority on how to revise the EED, because the way we revise that also puts forward the foundation beneath the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. So we also have to see this year as both a circular process of a lot of alone-standing revisions and new directives, but it's also a linear kind of a staged, a ladder, I would say, where we build upon what is going to be done, starting right now with the NIS2 directive and the Zero Pollution Action Plan. And as soon as we are out of the holiday, it will be the Energy Efficiency Directive and the soil strategy as part of the Fit for 55 package.
Good, thank you. Yeah. Sorry.
No, Sasha, what about the EED, the target? From your, if you could decide, where are we there? I know I'm teasing a little bit, but I mean, if we don't have targets that we can agree upon, then all our ideas, they cannot fly. So.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, but the question was about the water use and reuse, and here I think we should be much more creative in developing the various options, how to stimulate the businesses and others with the water reuse. Give you a couple of examples. First, we will close the coal mines, and that's not the problem of Denmark, but it's a problem of my country. And, those are large open pits, so they will be filled with the water. And, we need to attract to keep the people stay in the country, and with the various forms, how, for example, use that kind of water on a multiple purposes, and how to open, just because right now it's only the agriculture can somehow benefit out of those incentives. But here I can imagine the many other ways, for stimulating the businesses, the modern industries. Or another example, just a couple of weeks ago, I got a phone call from my friend, he is building a golf course. I know that, maybe the Greens don't like the golf course, but I have nothing against the golf courses. It's, but, there's those facilities, like many other sport facilities, which are regularly need water if they are open air facilities, but they don't have any kind of incentives for water use, and that's I think a pity, So I think this is particular area where we should focus on in the future, and try to bring some elements in the future legislation. That's just one example which I got into my mind listening, this comment which we have received just now.
So, Alexander, if I listen to you, you're pleading that also for, I would say, what we would call multiple waters for multiple purposes, and making sure that we have water quality fit for purpose. So different ways, different types of qualities that we can after use for different purposes.
True. And what we could do, and that you know more about that, Alexander, Sasha, because you are more experienced than I am, but maybe we should develop the idea of creating an own initiatives report before the end of this term, to build up for new initiatives to be taken by the next commission on legislative work, because I very much agree with you. And also that's a part of the water history. I didn't know that it was so faceted. I mean, there are so many frameworks and directives. It's really a deep sea of a lot of alone-standing initiatives that are still intertwined with other directives. So it's just like one big puzzle or one big domino. And it would really be maybe a good idea to see how we over time can reorganize it and streamline it a little bit more. So yeah, should we take on board another question or a comment maybe? I note that I didn't get anything out of asking Sasha on the energy efficiency target for. I will stay on that one.
No. Look, energy efficiency is very important. I know that it's largely promoted in the Scandinavian countries, but my youngest daughter, she just graduated in CVUT. That's the Czech version of MIT. And she will have a professional career in construction of the new buildings, and she constantly advising me, what can be done for the better water management in the newly constructed building, and how this contribute even to energy efficiency.
Perfect.
Water management. So I'm fully with you.
Perfect. And my daughter-in-law, she's actually studying water management on the Danish Engineer University. So, Sasha, if we want to have a quiet next Christmas, we must pull ourselves together and just do what our kids tell us to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Dirk.
Yeah, perhaps a different approach, because of course, I mean, well, I think you alluded already a little bit on, I would say, different perspectives that you have with regard to energy efficiency. But of course, if you look to both of your backgrounds, I think they're also, I would say, relatively different in the sense that Alexander is coming from an upstream country. Pernille, you're coming from a downstream country. Now, of course, all of these issues have to do with issues, and I think Alexander also touched about a few of these things about retention of water. Yeah, because in Czechia, apparently the forests are dying and there's not enough water. So what should they do? Should they try and keep the water in their area, or are there also issues to be discussed about, you could call it water solidarity between upstream and downstream countries? What are the implications for agriculture management and soil and biodiversity? Any views you would like to share with the audience on that? Perhaps we start with Alexandra. Alexander.
Look, we have also two German MEPs in our leadership, and they are not here with us today, but they have the both experiences, and they have the experience of the water, with the water flowing from the upstream to the downstream. So I think we have the balance experiences within the whole chain. But of course, for us, we are, one of the nickname of my country is the roof of Europe. So the rain is falling down, but everything flows outside. So seriously, this is a challenge, how to retain some water, because it's the function of the civilization in many ways, because you have paved the road everywhere, so the water, instead of penetrating into the ground, so it's flowing away. The rivers are regulated, so it's flowing faster out. And then also, the growing droughts caused that the surface of the grounds or the soil is harder, and thus it contributes also to faster outflow of the water. So this is the similar effect you can see practically in every Mediterranean country, that if the surface is hard and there are not any wetlands, then the water has no chance to get in. And it has, of course, a negative impact on the storage of the water in the underground, which is very important as a source of the drinking water, because you do not need to process that industrially in comparison if you are trying, to make a drinking water out of the sea or whatever Israel is doing, for example. In fact, Israel, to many respects, should be kept as a kind of a model country, with the water management. They are perfect in that. But back, for us as the upstream country, anything would help us to retain the water. It's not, still there would be enough water to outflow. Certainly, it's not our program is not the desertification of Germany or whatever. But it's a typical challenge of the inlet country.
Well, I just would like to put it there for now, that let's promise to come back to an activity, maybe one or two, maybe more, in the MEP Water, where we dig more into this aspect of upstream, downstream countries, but also sustainable forestry, soil. Also, I see from the chat that one is suggesting that we also put more eyes on geothermal solutions. So I think also let's start a kind of a learning curve on these important topics, also because it can enable us and we can train our ability to understand these different positions that we are, also in respect to subsidiarity, but also how we can learn from each other and help each other to use the resources and take care of the water as a common shared responsibility of the union. I guess that would be very helpful for us to do so.
If I may jump into that, look, a lot of that on the soil and the soil protection and the water retaining the country, there is a lot of interlink with the strategies on farm to fork and and what I would see as an important to stress the importance of the water in those strategies. So, it would be desirable to to make some kind of a due diligence of all those propositions which are content in those two strategies, and to stress the importance of the water.
True.
Very good.
True.
Very good. Okay, I have another question. It's about, I think the word came already up. It's about, let's say, mainstreaming of water. Actually, I mean, towards the Commission as Water Europe, together with our partners in the European Water Alliance, we've gone through the efforts to write up, I would say, a key, I would say a key document for the new European Commission, where we basically put the 5 key priorities of the water sector in towards the new European Commission. And on the base of that, we've had meetings with 14 different European commissioners to really discuss the role of water in their portfolios. And what was very interesting, because we did the same exercise 5 years ago, and while what we really noticed is, while then we still had to do a lot of missionary work. Actually, at that time, we even got the response from the then commissioner responsible for human disaster management that he didn't want to meet us because water was not relevant for his portfolio. Which was a very interesting statement. So we really had to do still a lot of explaining why water was important to these different portfolios. What struck us now, that this time over, really, I mean, people that we were meeting with from the cabinet of the different commissioners, we were very well informed, really well aware of the importance of water for their portfolio. And I would like to know how that goes with, I would say, your discussions with your colleagues in the European Parliament. Have you got the impression that generally they recognize, they are aware of the importance of water, or is still some education required there?
Well, if I can say first, in my group, the EPP group, I honestly think that the awareness is pretty high. What we can do better is actually to see in how many committees and aspects water plays a role. Because to me, it's nice to know that the new Commission has a higher level of awareness, but I would like to see it also in written. And when we see the Zero Pollution Action Plan, it's disappointing to see again how little role and awareness that water actually gets. So when it comes to the water agenda, also here we should be aware of the possibility of either greenwashing or pinkwashing. The good intentions, I would like to see initiatives, concrete proposals, because then we have something to wrestle about. Then we also have something to put forward into the more cross-disciplinary environment that is around our little group and Water Europe, that we can actually assess whether the proposed tools and targets are fit for the purpose, or it's only, you could say, pinkwashed, greenwashed, nice intentions, but we have to be sure that neither Sasha's daughter or my daughter-in-law is being disappointed by what we did today when they see the outcome in 10 years. I think what really helped to the water agenda in my environment, not only in the EPP, but also back home in Denmark, is to combine it to the climate, the EU Green Deal. And this if energy efficiency of not the building stock, but the water sector, that can actually give us an outcome of a reduction of 20 million tons of CO2. That is a picture that is easy to understand and to remember. And also, I think we must create these very simple facts of knowledge also on the reuse of water from the industrial sector, because we need these carrots and put them forward to our colleagues who are not working in the either ENVI or the ITRA committee, but also in trade, and that's why it's very good that we have Bernd Lange with us, because he's the committee chair of the trade committee, that he smells, okay, this year is about export to third world countries. And we cannot make the globe move in a cleaner and greener direction if we cannot offer the market sustainable and affordable solutions that work also outside of EU. So that's my take on that. But what about you, Sasha? It's a good question, Dirk.
It's a good question, Pernilla. I do not want to ideologize this, the conclusion, but just based on my 2 years experience in the European Parliament, is that the parties on the right side are more receptive to the water problem. It's EPP, it's my ECR, even ID, to some extent, while it's underrated in the left. I do not know why, because, water, if you are businessman, if you are industrialist, if you are just a small entrepreneur, all those people need water. And thus maybe they have the better understanding of the value of the water. So it's not an ideological challenge as such, it's a very practical need. While many of those other areas which compose the Green Deal relates more with either ideology, with some kind of a belief, or maybe, with a noble care of bringing good into Latin America or Indonesia. So I see that the left is very much active in protecting the biodiversity, is very much active in, fighting the carbon, but not so much active in the water. And here, I've always found people in EPP more receptive than it's, who is there today? ECR, EPP.
I've written down for myself a note on the.
So maybe the challenge is to educate the left, yeah.
Good. Okay, so the end of our session is approaching. I have one last question here in the chat box by Michiel Blind from Deltares in the Netherlands. He raises the question about the EU's water footprint. It is much larger than it needs to be, and he wonders if we could think about reducing the overall water footprint in Europe. Any thoughts you would like to share on that?
Well, definitely yes. And while I was listening to Sasha just before, I actually it came up to my mind that when I'm 53 years old now, but when I was a child, and I guess that also goes for Sasha, we are the same generation. It was about the cost of water. My mother, she was constantly arguing that we should cut down the use of water. And it kind of slipped out of the current discourse. So maybe also there we have a blind spot we need to take up again and talk about that, because it comes down to also what you addressed, Sasha, on scarcity as well. So if we want to really work with circularity, it's also a part of how can we use less water. Because we also use energy to reuse water. So we can also cut down on CO2 emissions by using less water. So it all goes hand in hand. So yes, thank you for the point coming up from the chat.
Yeah, agree. And at the end of the day, it's about the price of water, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I think we have reached the end of the session, and time is up because also now, Alexander, you need to rush. So Alexander and Pernilla, any concluding remarks before we close the session? I think there are still many topics out there. At least I'd written down quite a number of points I would have liked to address with you, but I think we will save them for a next occasion. So any last remarks?
Only that Sorry, Sasha.
Just don't forget how the digitalization can help us.
Exactly.
That's my last
Exactly.
comment. But otherwise, thank you very much. Thank you, Pernilla, for organizing that, and let's work together.
Yes, we have done that from the very, very beginning, Sasha, and I'm so lucky to have you here on board. And I look forward also to see our ex-colleague from Greens, so that we can have a handful of colleagues to work together with, and also to support you and your team, Dirk, in what you do, and the big network to research environments, to businesses, big and small, in all of Europe, working with the water technologies. Thank you so much for organizing this year, Loïc and Dirk. And thank you to all of you who used your lunch time together with us here from the European Parliament. Thank you so much.
Very good. So I would say to the audience also, stay tuned for what is coming up after the summer holidays, because there will be many.
A big wave.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.